Hello and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter with me, Marty McNabb. If you've been following along, or even if you've been here just this time, I have always loved hearing the stories that get attached to the things that we surround ourselves with, we adorn ourselves with, basically the things that we keep in our personal museum. I was asked many years ago, like, why did I start show and tell? These in person events that I've been hosting over 15 years now. And I started it, I think I got drawn into it because my parents are not natural storytellers. I didn't get a chance to sit around a table or out on a porch or around a bonfire and have stories shared. We moved 9 times before high school, so we weren't close to family. And when I asked them just these little story prompt things, your favorite, childhood memory, or how did you, it, I got very little depth in the story. They told me something, but it was very little depth. But if I ended up handing them an object, I handed them, like my father, his government issued Ray-Bans when he was a pilot in the U.S. Air Force, or my mother one of her Madonnas or her angels or a pot that we got when we were traveling in the Southwest. Then it took a little while, but it's just started pouring out. The story started pouring out, and that's what I found. I don't naturally feel confident or love telling my stories in the written word. And so having this opportunity to bring an object and share its story has been what's fascinated me for over 15 years. So on today's episode, I am so excited because it has taken months and months for me to finally have my guest today, Xanthe, join me in my new studio here at the Riverside studio that I just got a couple of weeks ago, and to finally hear more, have her on my podcast, and hear more of her story, and have my listeners and watchers hear more about her. So, a little background. Xanthe and I ended up meeting through, as if you've been following along, you've heard this before, my good friend, our good friend, Diana Place, who is of the Third Act Quest, and she created an online community that also meets in person, thankfully, called the 333 Collective. So we have done two Quest events, Quest 2024 and 2026. And I didn't get a chance to meet Xanthe at 2024, but did in 2026 because Xanthe is coming in, lives in France, although from Australia. And so it was a little hard for her to make it all work for 2024, but I am so glad that she was able to make it in person in 2026. And I'm also so excited to be joining her for her first in-person retreat in France in September. And she'll tell you more about that at the end of our time together today. But without further ado, I am going to give the stage over to Xanthe for what you know now is the show and tell section of our time together. And I'm going to let her take it away, and then I'll ask her some questions afterwards. So take it away.
Oh, thanks so much, Marty. I'm so glad that we managed to get this organized, and I'm super excited to be sharing my little thing that matters. May seem a little bit odd, but hopefully, once you hear the story behind it, it will make more sense. So, I'm going to share my screen because my object is so special and so precious that it is put away in a storage container in France to keep it safe. Again, when you hear the story, you will understand why. So, okay, here we go. I will share my screen. Okay, this is it. Yes, it is an ashtray. It is a black ashtray. So, this ashtray I acquired in 1986. As you said, I am Australian, but I moved to France in 1986 to dance at the Lido de Paris. on the Champs-Elysees. And I was a smoker back then, as a lot of people were in the 1980s. And this was the ashtray, the Lido ashtray that was on all the tables. But I got mine. I can't actually remember how I acquired it. I don't think I bought it, but anyway. And I had it on my dressing table. So every night when I would get ready for the two shows a night, 6 nights a week, having my cigarettes, doing my makeup, doing my hair, getting all my costumes ready, all of that kind of thing. So it sat there, and I worked at the Lido for 4 years. So for 4 years, I had my little ashtray on my dressing table. Fast forward, after about 9 years living in France and dancing, not all the time at Lido, but in France, I then moved back to Australia and brought my ashtray with me. I didn't smoke anymore, so I put it at the back of the cupboard, and, life went on. Sort of, got married, had 2 kids, all of that. 30 years later, my husband and I then moved back to France, and we've settled in a city called Nantes. When we bought our apartment, we decided to have a housewarming party, like you do, and invited a bunch of people that we'd met and hardly knew, but there were some smokers. And so out came the Lido ashtray for the first time in 30 years out on the balcony for the smokers. All good. But the following weekend, or a few days later, we'd left the ashtray out there, and there was a big storm. And the ashtray blew off the balcony and completely disappeared. And we looked on the streets, we looked in case a truck had run over it and smashed, which my husband kept saying that's what had happened. And I was just getting more and more upset, thinking, oh, that's it. So we searched everywhere, not to be found. And I was really devastated because, I'd had this ashtray for a really long time, and it was a memory of my past. Especially like when you look at the design on the little drawing that was on the cover of the program at the time of the Lido, and it's got Lido de Paris written there. The Moet et Chandon, that's the champagne, of course, and we drank a lot of that uh, before, after, and during the show. And anyway, it was just a really special kind of memento from the past. So really the Lido in its heyday, that's what it represented to me. Anyway, so I was pretty distressed. But anyway, follow the next weekend. So a very short time afterwards, we have a brocante, which is like a flea market that we go to every weekend. Not very far from where we live. And we go every weekend and we go, we're not buying anything. We're not buying anything. And of course, we always come home with some kind of little thing. Anyway, so we're wandering around and walk past this store, and lo and behold, there's a Lido ashtray, a black Lido ashtray. And I was just like, wait, what? Because we had never seen one before and we had never seen one since. And we went up, how much is the ashtray? €5? Yes. And we got it and brought it home. And my husband and I are still debating to this day whether it is actually my ashtray that somehow miraculously ended up at this brocante, or if it was just, happened to be a coincidence. But it was meant to come back to me. My feeling is, whatever it is, if it's mine or not, it was meant to come back to me, and it did. So that is why it is now safely locked away so that it doesn't go missing again. So I will stop sharing. But yes, that is my show and tell story, and it's a bit of a lost and found, circling back kind of thing as well.
I love it because I think that, needless to say, you got the whole concept of, because it's not that the thing matters, it's the thing represents
Exactly.
it represents that time when you were young, when you were doing something that adventurous, something that you took a big risk, that you stepped out because it was also you were doing fashion, my understanding. There was a bunch. It represents a lot of you, um, like you said before you ended up getting married and having kids, and and we're now in our third act, and this is why we've connected with Diana Place and the 333 Collective. And the third act quest is because, it's sort of like, oh, and that ties you to that period of time. And um,
Yeah.
it was
And
another type of storytelling
well, it
in
is. And
dancing.
I think the fact that I lost it and it came back to me at such a significant moment after just moving back to France again, which of course I acquired it when I'd first moved to France when I was 18 years old. And then I lost it and I acquired it back again 40 years later when I was, 58, moving back to France. And it really made me start to just really reflect on my life and thinking, well, funny it's a hat, thinking about all the hats that I've worn over my life
Yeah,
and the renewed energy that I felt when I first arrived in France, but also moving back at this age, getting that renewed energy back again.
yeah.
Um, so it was just so significant, the object, but then the fact of losing it and refinding it again at that point in my life,
Yeah.
it was quite amazing.
And I love that you and your husband still have, still talk about it, and like, was that really yours that got blown off and somebody found it and they're like, hey, I can make five euros from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
totally,
great. That's
totally.
wonderful. So, as you know, my
Mhm.
next question, my only follow-up question to people's show and tell section is my legacy question. And that is, have you considered what you would like to have happen with this thing, this ashtray that matters to you, when you're dead and gone?
Yeah, yeah. And look, it's really interesting. And I've been thinking about this because my mother passed away 12 months ago, um, 10 months, coming up to 12 months ago. And now my father is my stepfather is in the final stages of life. And, you know, like when I went back to Australia when my mum passed away, I was going through all of her belongings.
Mm.
And there is a connection with those objects because it brings back memories to me, and it's a connection I feel still connected with my mum through those objects. And um, it's kind of weird in a way because the relationship that I have in the with the objects, I can love them, like I love my mum.
Yeah,
It's a weird kind of thing, isn't it? And I feel like, the same with my stepfather going. So this kind of idea of um, going through objects, not, more the sentimental things that have stories attached and that really represent their legacy and who they were, um, as I knew them during their lives. So my ashtray, I would hope that one of my kids will take it. Um, Both of our kids live in Paris, and my son is actually a dancer at the Moulin Rouge. So he doesn't smoke though. So he's kind of carried on that dancer
yeah.
legacy, which is really interesting.
Wow.
Um, and my daughter is living in Paris as well. So, I feel like to either of them or both of them, I hope that it would mean something to them just as a sentimental piece,
Yeah.
because of the story attached to it. So yeah, that's what I hope.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing that he's carrying this on, and you know, and that your dance, you must have inspired him in some ways to do that.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't start dancing till quite late. It was never really sort of a plan. It just kind of happened, and I'm so glad it did. I mean, I think because my husband's French, and the kids were born in Australia and grew up in Australia, but their French part of their identity to me was really, really important. So there might have been like a bit of an unexplicit expectation that they would go and live in France at some stage to really understand the French culture and that part of their identity. So, but to go and work at the Moulin Rouge was very unexpected, but it's great.
No, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. And needless to say, my understanding of this object is it's small enough that it's not like one of those big ashtrays that you're like, okay, like, what am I going to do with this? So it seems like it's quite small, and so it's not going to take up too much space. And the best part of it, again, is that now they know the story, because that's what, there's this um, very common, I don't know what you would call it. It's just like on repeat now about like minimalism and oh, my kids aren't going to want this, and my kid and my grandkids that seems to be what every article is talking about, when they're talking about downsizing and things like that. And to me, obviously, just like you with your mom, and I'm so sorry for your loss,
Thank you.
and your stepdad as well. Um, we can't keep everything.
No, no.
That's just a truth.
Mm,
Um,
mm, yeah,
so, right. But if we end up choosing and picking and selecting or curating
yeah.
some things that we love,
Mm,
then and tell the stories, make sure that our loved ones know the stories, then they may keep it because it has a story, or at least they get to keep the story and they'll let go of the object. But
true.
if we
Yeah.
just die and leave everything and nobody knows the story, then it does. I joke a little bit. It's then it just ends up being junk. It's like
Yeah.
then you pull in the dumpster, and because you don't understand why it was important, why they surrounded, why they had that broken vase that they kept on the shelf, right? Like, it is bizarre what we keep.
It
Well, of
sure
course we
is.
keep heirlooms, and that's wonderful. And mostly heirlooms do have stories attached to them. Generally speaking, we do pass those on. But
Mm,
unfortunately, we have other things that we surround ourselves with that nobody would understand why,
yeah, yeah,
unless we tell the story and say why it's so important. I mean, that little thing could have easily, your little ashtray could have easily just been like, I don't know why I have no idea what that means, right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
considering you are a storyteller, I can't see it possible that your kids wouldn't know the stories of the things that matter to you. So, that's a perfect segue into the next section, which is you sharing with my audience, my watchers and listeners, how they can know, more about you, how they can find you, get more information, follow you, all of the things. So this is your chance to share with the audience more about you, and I'm looking forward to it too. Take it away.
Thank you. Yes, well, so um I guess I've started this kind of later part of my life. I resigned from my full-time position as a researcher. I was a researcher while I was still in Australia looking at social and emotional well-being for older adults. And a lot of the programs that I did were around storytelling, creative arts, and intergenerational practice to improve quality of life and well-being. And so, since moving to France, I've moved away from the research because I believe there is enough evidence to show that these kind of programs are beneficial. Seeing it firsthand and experiencing it firsthand, I just don't know how you could think it possibly isn't. But anyway, we do need research to get funding support and prove, to actually try and get more investment in well-being programs and quality of life programs, as important as all of the clinical and kind of medical research. So my goal since I left all that and moved to France is really to provide more opportunities for people to get involved in storytelling and creative arts and intergenerational programs. So in doing so, I've launched Stories in Practice, which I host a range of different in-person storytelling events. So in France, I have local storytelling events which are for women of all ages, who share their stories around different topics and different themes. The next one we've got coming up is actually around creativity, the need to create and the importance of being creative, and it's actually going to be in an art studio. So that's really exciting, and it's all in French, which is interesting as well. And then I also run storytelling workshops online where I coach people to create a digital story, or actually just start to go through the process of unpacking and finding their story. And I've got a lot of kind of prompts and writing prompts and activities that we do depending on the format of the workshop and also what the intention is and the theme. So some workshops are a couple of hours, some go for sort of 5 weeks, 2 hours a week. So there's a whole range of different workshops available. And then, as you said, the other thing I do is one-on-one coaching. So for people, so for example, at the last Quest event that you were talking about earlier, we had a lot of storytellers, one of which you were one of the storytellers. You weren't in my group, but I had another group of 11 storytellers who I coached so that they could prepare to share their story on stage. So I do that coaching as well. And then, as you mentioned, I've got my first retreat in France, which is super exciting. And that one is for women, older women who are entrepreneurs, founders, coaches, creatives, and especially those who are maybe have recently started, or who are thinking of starting a business for the first time in later life. And everybody will be creating an individual digital story. So reconnecting with their why, their purpose, what is it that drives them to do what they're doing. And then also we're creating a collective piece, which is really around women leaders and women in business. And we'll be looking as a group at what are some of the challenges that we face externally, but as well as internally. So things like imposter syndrome and all of those sort of things. I mean, even women that have had super high flying careers, there's still, when it comes to setting up their own business or starting a venture, or especially something with a cause or something they're really passionate about, there can be a lot of doubts. So we'll be looking at what the challenges are, but then also as a group looking at, well, how can we address these challenges? And creating a video that will be an advocacy piece for women in business that we can share to inspire others and hopefully, give more women the confidence and inspiration to kind of do what they've always wanted to do and are passionate about, that's going to bring them joy. So that's it.
That's amazing. So, but one of the things that you have not said yet is, how can people find you? Where's the information, honey? I'm
True,
going to have
true.
you
Sorry,
go.
yes. Okay, so I have my website, which is Stories in Practice. I also have my LinkedIn profile, which is my name, Xanthe Golenko. And I also have an Instagram account, which is Stories in Practice. I have a Facebook account, which is in my name. So it's a little bit fragmented. Don't you love that social media website kind of thing that we're navigating? Getting there. But certainly, if you look up either my name or Stories in Practice, you will find me. And hopefully, maybe we can put some links in the show notes, or not sure how that works with you.
Absolutely. There will
Okay.
be links in the show notes for sure. I will
Great.
be doing that. And I love the idea of stories in practice, because you were in research before, and research is great. but you're taking these things from research and saying, okay, what are they in practice? And I have been, like Xanthe said, I was not one of her one-on-one coaching clients for the Quest 2026, but I worked with another coach, Amy Newsom, and that was delightful. But I have taken an online uh, short stories. It was this whole thing about how to tell an impactful story in a very short amount of time, and that was incredibly helpful and incredibly timely, considering I had just uh, gotten chosen to do a 2-minute talk in October. So it was just like, yeah, okay, let's see how this is. I'm just gonna breathe through it. It's possible because I've seen some of Xanthe's digital stories, and they are maybe not even 2 minutes, and they are incredibly impactful. And so I'm like, just seeing the digital stories, even though I'm going to be actually a talking head instead of the object or whatever photo, but I'm like, it's possible. If this is a thing, this is possible. And thank you for the encouragement in that program about, yes, it is possible. It seems overwhelming, but it is possible. So I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, I think
Yay.
that's what's so special about this, the digital storytelling in particular, because it is such a short form of
Mhm.
storytelling. And so it really is about distilling that key message.
Mhm.
And it's around a lived experience. So it's your own, what people understand or make meaning from a lived experience and share that. And that's what resonates with others. And so having it short and that emotional connection as you share what that experience meant to you. People really resonate with that and connect with that. So it's just an incredibly powerful way of sharing story, I think.
It absolutely is, and I am thrilled to be joining you in France in September at your first retreat. You are an inspiration. I've been wanting to host a retreat for a long time, and so this is like, yes, like you just said about the short stories and the two, I can do it in 2 minutes. Yep, you can do it, and it's the same thing with you've been wanting to do a in-person retreat for a while, and you're doing it. So you're a great inspiration in that way. So
I'm
uh,
so excited that you're joining me. So
me too.
excited.
Me
It's going
too.
to be an
So
amazing
exciting.
group.
I
Yeah.
haven't been to Europe on my own solo for since I was 20. So we're talking like 47, 47 years, something like that. It's been a long time, and I'm so looking forward to it, and I love the idea of um, creating something for me to share about my why I do the work that I do, why it's important to me, and in impacting other people's lives. Um, and then
Your work
also
is so important, Marty. Your work is so important, and
thank you.
I love what you do and the way that you do it.
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank
So
you so much. And I'm can't wait to work with you on telling my story in a short story. So because I tend to be wordy, if you haven't noticed. Um,
I think we all are because we're passionate about what we do. We can talk about it all day, but you don't want to listen to us all day.
we can tend to overwhelm people, and maybe you overwhelm them, but after they get an idea, after that short part, then they might want to know more, and then you can tell them more. So that's the beauty, and then creating something with the other women that are going to be there, about women entrepreneurs and third act women entrepreneurs. I just think that that's going to be so incredibly powerful. So I can't wait. So, and I can't wait to share this episode with the people, my audience here on this podcast, on this episode. So thank you so much for joining me, Xanthe. I'm so glad that we were able to finally do this. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Things That Matter. And as always, I encourage you to look around your home, look around your space, and and think about the things that you'll leave behind, and this make sure the most important thing, because it's not that things matter as we were talking here, it's the stories that do. So please make time to share the stories of the things that matter. Thank you so much, Xanthe, for joining me.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks so much for having me.